Hello lovely lot, my name is Max, welcome back to my YouTube channel and the final Nottingham Forest match preview of the season. Yes, we are back for the final match day of the 2021-22 season. Obviously we will be back for the playoffs, but it's the final normal game of the season. I've got to say, pretty big one against Hull City because it's a chance to finish in third position in the Championship and maximise our chances of getting into the Premier League next season, and hopefully we can do that via the playoffs. Obviously for the playoffs I will be doing match previews for the two semi-final legs and obviously the final if we get that far, and after that we then have the entire off season, so please let me know in the comment section down below what you would like to see me do during that period. I have a couple of suggestions and a couple of ideas running around my head at the moment, a couple of tier list ideas, but obviously if you've got any ideas of your own, let me know and I will get onto them. As usual, we will also be talking about our previous fixture today, talking about our 1-0 defeat against Bournemouth on the road. So if you want to skip past that part, I will always leave the time code on the screen so you can go forward into today's match preview. Without any further ado, let's crack into today's episode. Before we do that, of course, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel whilst you're down there if you're new to the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. The support on the channel has been mental recently, getting really close to 600 subscribers. Our next milestone is 1,000. Hopefully we can hit that in the next few months. With that being said, let's crack into that Bournemouth game and talk a little bit about our 1-0 defeat against the Cherries. And unfortunately, I think for the first time since I started doing these, it is a disappointing result as we pick up a 1-0 defeat at the Vitality, thanks to a late strike from sub Fifa scoring his third goal. I think in 3 games, I think all 3 of his goals have been against us and Swansea over the last couple of weeks. Really well worked from a free kick, to be fair. We should have really tried to capitalise on the opportunity of going ahead of them potentially in the table, but we didn't, and I think by the end of the game it was probably a justified result. We looked very tired by the end of it. A bit more on the goal as Zamora drove inside towards the box. They picked up a free kick. It was contentious whether it was a penalty or not. It was right on the edge. Philip Billing stepped up, he slid it across the edge of the box, and Kiefer Moore was there to finish it into the bottom corner. The commentators on the day were saying it was something out of the training ground. It didn't really look like it. It just looked like we'd switched off and didn't pick him up. He was the furthest, widest man on the left-hand side, and unfortunately no one was there to pick him up. He scored from it, and unfortunately it led to us losing. And as I said earlier, Bournemouth were probably the better team on the day. Over the course of that 90 minutes, they saw around 60% possession, generating 12 shots, ourselves just generating 7. And defended us really well. I've got to say that has been, like I said in the preview, the most marked improvement in this Bournemouth team this season. Defensively, they've made some really big strides forward. Nat Phillips and Lloyd Kelly doing a really good job in the back at keeping us out. That being said, over the match we hit the bar pretty early and we should have had a penalty that was out, not even in question. The referee admitted as much despite the fact an offside was given afterwards to Steve Cooper. And I've got to say, over the course of the match, we did ourselves really proud to say this is a team pushing towards the Premier League. We're now going to be in the Premier League next season. I think we did a really good job. I should be very proud of ourselves. And if not for some really poor refereeing on the day from supposedly a Premier League quality referee, well, we would have probably done a bit better. Unfortunately, that defeat does rule out our chances of automatic promotion this season, and I do think it was probably quite a slim chance of us ever really getting there. It was sort of a bit of a pipe dream for us. We will be finishing in the playoffs, and hopefully with a win against Hull, finishing in third position in the Championship this season. So let's talk a little bit about that Hull game and start the preview. It's been a strange season for Hull, bouncing back up to the Championship at the first time of asking after relegation down to League One, and currently under the change of management and ownership they sit in 18th position in the Championship under no threat of relegation this season, and probably pretty comfortable in the idea of having something to build on next season. I'm not going to talk at all really about the ownership situation at Hull. It's not really for me to say. I'm not a Hull fan, nor do I know really enough about the situation, so I'd suggest you go check out Alfie from HITC7. Even though he is a Hull fan, he gives a really good subjective view of what's going on at the club at the moment, and I highly suggest checking his videos out if you want to know a little bit more about the situation going on at Hull at the moment. What I can say for definite is that they were promoted last season under Grant McCann, the current Peterborough manager, at the first time of asking following their relegation down to League One, and haven't been doing pretty badly under him. They were 18th at the time of his sacking, the same position that they were in at the moment. He was replaced by Georgian manager Shota Alveladze, and he has maintained their league position, winning 6, drawing 3 and losing 9 of his games since joining the club in January. And they come into this game in pretty mixed form, 3 wins and 3 losses in their last 6 games, including 2 wins against relegation rivals Reading and Cardiff, and 2 losses against playoff contenders Millwall and Huddersfield, so a mixed bag really. So with all that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about Hull City's season so far in terms of their statistics, how they're lining up on the field, and what sort of made them a semi-decent team in the Championship this season. This is by far the biggest section of this video. Hull's goal scoring record this season has been questionable to say the least. 40 goals in 45 games, less than 1 goal per match, and the 3rd lowest tally in the division to date. Moreover, they don't really create a huge amount for themselves either, just over 10 chances created per match, with only Peterborough really generating more chances, generating less chances per match. They can count themselves lucky then that they have Keane Lewis Potter in their side, who is currently, I would guess, their talisman at the moment. He is their top goal scorer this season with 11 goals, and their only player in the league to have notched more than 5 over the course of the campaign, and has really been a big reason as to why they've not really struggled too much over the course of this campaign. On the other hand, defensively, they've been poor, but not actually that awful. They concede around 13 shots per match, which is around 4th or 5th worst in the league at the moment. But on the other hand, they've only conceded 53 goals over the course of the season, which is 9th best in the division, which is pretty good for a team in and around the relegation zone. A big part of this has been their goalkeepers this season. It's a very strange situation with their goalkeepers at the moment. Matt Ingram, who is the goalkeeper who's played the most minutes for them over the course of this season, has recently joined Luton on a 7-day emergency contract, emergency loan. He's maintained a save percentage of around 72%, so slightly above average, which is pretty decent. And then Nathan Baxter, who has usurped him as the #1 choice between the sticks over the sort of remaining period of this season, has maintained an 82% save percentage in his 15 appearances, the highest save percentage of any goalkeeper in the Championship this season. And it's a little wonder why he's got some interest going from him, the Chelsea loanee. I'm not sure really what the situation is down there with their goalkeepers. If you know a bit more, let me know in the comment section down below. But it just looks like there's some really good healthy competition there, and Ingram obviously has joined Luton for the rest of the season, which means it'll more than likely be Nathan Baxter playing between the sticks against us at the weekend. And I feel like the Chelsea loanee could probably do better than Hull next season. Obviously, if they choose to bring him back, then fair play to him because he's done a really good job, but I feel like he could comfortably go into an upper-end Championship team, or maybe play his second choice at a lower-end Premier League team at this stage. Despite the antics of Baxter and Lewis Potter over the course of this season, Who Scored actually have their best player down as 22-year-old academy product Brandon Fleming. And this has definitely been a theme in this Hull City squad. There's some really good young players in their squad at the moment. Brandon Fleming has attained a 7.21 rating on Who Scored over the course of his 16 league appearances for the Tigers this season. And the left back has 3 assists in the league and is the 2nd highest ranking player in the Hull City squad for chances created per match, and also completes the most dribbles per match in that Hull City squad at around 2, and he's a really good ball progressor down that left hand side. And defensively, he's also doing a really good job, up at around 5.5 tackles and interceptions per match. To give you a bit of context and reference on those stats, only Max Lowe completes more tackles in the Nottingham Forest squad at the moment, and only Keenan Davis and Jed Spence complete more dribbles over Brandon Fleming in the Forest squad at the moment. And he's a really good, well-rounded left back, and to be fair, if Hull City were open to selling him, I'd bring him into Forest. He's a player experienced playing in a wing-back system. He's a really good attacking threat, really solid defensively. And even if he isn't our #1 next season, I think he could be a really good second choice for us down that left-hand side, especially if we don't bring in Max Lowe permanently. Overall, Hull have a really interesting and young squad, and something to build on after establishing themselves back in the Championship last season. Defensively, they're doing fairly well over the course of this season, conceding just the 9th least goals in the Championship this season. But I think if they want to push on and really push up into mid-table next season, they really need to add some more firepower up front. George Honeyman and Lewis Potter are doing all the work for them leading that line, and they don't really have a prolific number 9 up front, and that could possibly be the biggest area for improvement for them next season. So now we move into the final section of the video where we talk a bit about how Hull City play in their matches and what we can expect as Nottingham Forest fans. Now I'll caveat this is probably going to be the shortest section of the video. There wasn't a huge amount out there on how Hull City played. I ended up watching about 3 or 4 games worth of highlights from recent weeks from them, and these are the general consensus things I was able to gather from them. But if you're a Hull City fan, please let me know how you think your team's doing this season, because I've got an eye on them. I think they're a decent little side and they've got some decent little players down there. Over the course of this season, Hull have rotated between a 4-2-3-1 formation, which was preferred by Grant McCann, and a 3 at the back system as they've transitioned into their new manager since January. And predominantly in recent weeks, like I said, they've mainly been using that 3 at the back formation, specifically since the turn of the year. The extra centre-back offers them a little bit more defensive coverage, especially considering they are one of the most affected teams from crosses this season, as they see the 4th most crosses attempted against them per match, which suggests they're really good at defending in a compact, low block and forcing teams wide and into crossing situations, which, as you'll have seen, they're pretty good at defending. The width in the team comes from the wing-backs, particularly Fleming on the left-hand side, who pulls wide out onto the touchline in order to stretch the opposition as much as possible, with the defenders able to step out into the wide areas and cover defensively as and when they are required, especially when the wing-backs get caught a little bit far upfield. Doherty and Smallwood are usually the midfield 2 that play in this Hull City team, and they offer a little bit more bite defensively in that midfield with quite a lot of technical players in there. They're the players who tend to anchor the midfield, are offering a good amount of tackling, a good amount of interceptions and defensive coverage for their attacking players. Predominantly their attack consists of a front 3. This includes George Honeyman on the right and Keane Lewis-Potter on the left, 2 players who, rather than playing as wide wingers, tend to operate more inside the half space, picking the ball up in the half space on the half turn, sort of occupying that area between the opposition's defence and midfield. As a team, they don't tend to see a lot of the ball. They only rank sort of around 46% possession, down the bottom third of teams in the Championship for possession, but unlike teams in and around this area, they don't tend to hit teams long and fast on the break, instead looking to be a little bit more measured and composed when breaking through the lines on the transition, choosing to adopt a bit more of a short passing game rather than a long ball game that you would see a Blackburn or a Luton try and play, who play quite low possession, high octane counter-attacking football. And in terms of chance creation, they're pretty generic in terms of their chance creation. They're pretty good from crossing though. They generate the 4th most crosses in the league per match over the course of this season, so it's definitely a really good avenue for their attacking, and obviously Brandon Fleming's a big part of that down that left-hand side. He is definitely the more aggressive of the 2 wing-backs, who definitely looks to force the opposition into more defensive state. So yeah, apologies, that's pretty much all I could find and sort of determine tactically from this Hull City team. Defensively, they're pretty solid. They like to play out from the back when they do catch teams on the transition, using short passing rather than just knocking it long and trying to win it down. They certainly don't really have the personnel to adopt that kind of style. They don't really look like they've got that much like a big brutish number 9 who can win knockdowns and link up with their other forwards. That being said though, they can be dangerous on the transition. It's definitely worth Forest keeping an eye on. Also, their width will probably be a big issue for Forest on the day. It's not really something we've experienced in recent weeks, and Brandon Fleming in particular down that left-hand side with Keane Lewis-Potter playing in the half space, they could cause us some problems. So it's going to be important that Jed Spence and Brennan Johnson, assuming that they're starting and we're not doing any rotating, do a bit of defensive work as and when they're required to. Overall, I'm going to suggest this game is probably going to be a run-of-the-mill result for the Reds. Hopefully, something like a 3-0 or a 4-0 win for the Reds in order to make sure we've got that goal difference advantage over Huddersfield so we can finish in 3rd position in the Championship this season and go into the playoffs in as good a form as possible. Of course though, as always, let me know in that comment section down below what your score predictions to this match is and who you think the man of the match is going to be for the Reds. Like I said, a good 3 or 4-0 result will be just what the doctor ordered after that disappointing loss against Bournemouth. And of course, stay tuned for the channel. Over the next couple of weeks, we will be covering the playoffs in detail, specifically Nottingham Forest's journey, hopefully back to the Premier League. So don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel whilst you're down there so you don't miss a single video from Nottingham Forest's playoff journey. And with that being said, enjoy the game, Reds, enjoy the rest of the season and your weekend. I will catch you for the playoffs later.